Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and once again it is time for the Monday Q&As. So let's knock this out. First question. Central nervous system. How to repair a fried CNS and how to increase CNS output. Thanks, brah. Alright. This is something that people talk about way too much. You don't fry your CNS. Your peripheral nervous system gets fatigued, in which case you simply need longer breaks between training sessions. You're doing too much workload, too much volume, too many 1-rep maxes, too many training maxes in one workout, and you're overtaxing your peripheral nervous system, and you're going to be weaker until you take a day off or 2 days off from training. You're just going to lose strength. Don't confuse this with overtraining. Overtraining is not a fried central nervous system. It is a full medical condition, and if you are truly overtrained, there's a good chance you're going to need to be in a hospital. You're going to need medical attention. You're going to have a lot of problems. People who are overtrained or overtraining, usually their resting heart rate gets really high, their blood pressure goes up, their strength drops at least 25%. They get intense muscle cramps in various muscles in their body or all through their body. They're going to struggle to sleep due to the intense painful cramps. There's a lot of problems around it, and usually you're going to need medical attention if you actually overtrain. So it's not something that happens very often. It's thrown around too much. But if your peripheral nervous system is overtaxed, then you just need to take a day or two off from the gym. It's as simple as that. All right, next question. Would you agree that weight training is severely underrated in our societies? It seems any idiot can become a qualified personal trainer. I witnessed a PT teaching a 17-year-old to half squat with a belt and knee wraps and pussy pad. The obvious solution would be to make PT courses much more strenuous. Do you think that would work, or would it just put people off? Is it better to have less knowledgeable PTs or less more knowledgeable PTs? All right, guys, look at it this way. You get what you pay for. Most personal trainers are underqualified. They're idiots who don't know anything about training, don't know anything about nutrition, and the courses are usually pretty ridiculous. They don't learn anything during these qualifications, nothing really useful. However, the reality is people who want a good trainer, who have the money to afford a good trainer, are going to go get one. People who can't afford a good trainer are going to go to places like the internet, books, and whatever if they're serious about the results, and they're going to learn and not use a personal trainer. They're going to watch channels like this. They're going to watch my tutorials, use my programs, things like that. Most people who hire personal trainers don't actually need someone knowledgeable. They're not there to gain knowledge. They're there to have someone hold their hand while they work out. They're there to have someone to motivate them, and they're there to have a chat buddy and a friend to socialize with while they work out, who's just giving them some instructions as they go and helping them along. They're not really looking to get fantastic results. They just want somebody to help motivate them and be their friend while they work out. That's what the vast majority of people who hire personal trainers are doing. So for the most part, the ones who are hiring them are getting what they want. And as far as quality, you get what you pay for. And most people simply cannot afford a really good personal trainer who really knows what they're doing. All right, next question. Jason, regarding electrolytes, what do you recommend for guidelines of sodium and potassium intake for athletes? And what do you think of potassium supplements if you have a hard time hitting from food intake? Thanks. Most athletes are going to have very high energy turnovers. You're going to be eating large amounts of calories. And therefore, if you're eating a large amount of things like meat and vegetables, fruits, things like that, the type of foods that most athletes are going to be eating, you're going to get sufficient potassium intake because your intake might be 50% or 100% larger than the average person's intake, and you're getting it from all these whole foods. You're going to reach your potassium numbers. The only exception is going to be people who are sweating out large amounts of electrolytes from sweat during training in the heat, in which case maybe a potassium supplement might help if they're experiencing cramping or other issues. And this is also why we have electrolyte drinks and sports drinks out there to help with this. And yes, those things are effective for that. So you don't necessarily need to spend a lot of time worrying about it if you're getting sufficient food intake from whole foods and you're not sweating excessive amounts out in the heat doing the long training sessions in the heat, then it's not an issue. And again, those people who are out doing endurance type work in the heat who are sweating are going to be using electrolyte drinks anyways, and they're still going to be okay. All right, next question. Do you believe that the body can only digest a certain amount of protein per meal? And by that logic, you should spread your total protein across, say, 5 meals. Thanks. No, this is a myth. It's based upon nonsense. Your body can absorb virtually a limitless amount of protein. It just takes time. The larger the amount of protein that you consume, the larger amount of time it might take to digest it. If you consume a massive amount, 300 grams of protein in one sitting, you're going to eventually get the vast majority of it. It just might take longer than a day to get there. You might not be able to absorb that much in a single day, but it's going to take a couple days for that food to pass completely through your GI tract, and you're going to eventually get all of it. The reality is you can still make progress and get sufficient protein even if you only ate one meal a day. However, you probably need at least 3 servings of protein through the day if your goal is to optimize muscle protein synthesis. You're not going to make quite as good of gains as you could, and you won't spare as much muscle mass as you possibly could if you're only consuming, say, 1 or 2 protein servings per day when you're either trying to gain muscle or lose fat. It's really not ideal for total protein turnover and muscle protein synthesis. You really want a minimum of at least 3 high protein meals per day, ideally. All right, next question. What's the best way to cause your body to become more efficient at consuming stored body fat and using that for fuel rather than just going to stored carbs? Your body is always going to go to stored carbs for any sort of high intensity work. That's the reality of it. If you're doing high intensity cardio or you are lifting weights, you're going to burn glucose for fuel. No way around it. It's your body's preferred fuel source. However, people who are athletic and active are going to burn fat anyways in the epoch effect after that training. And the thing is, your body burns whatever you feed it. If you're consuming carbs and fat, your body will tend to burn the carbs for fuel, store the fat. And if you're eating mostly fat, your body will burn the fat that you ate first before it goes to your body fat. But in either scenario, you don't gain fat unless you overeat. And if you burn more total calories than you eat, your body will still tap into your body fat stores. But it's always going to tap into your glucose stores, your glycogen stores first a little bit, no matter what you do. So there's no way around this. There's no way to really bypass the energy balance equation. Your body is always going to tap into glycogen stores first a little bit, and then it's going to tap into body fat when you go into a caloric deficit. There's no way around that. And even people who do ketogenic diets like myself, I don't have any illusions about that. I know that my glucose stores are going to be a little lower because I'm in ketosis, and my body has burned off some of the excess glucose, and then it's going to tap into my body fat stores after that. But it's still going to burn the glucose first if it is available to some extent. So you really shouldn't be worrying about that sort of thing necessarily. And if you want to just burn fat as a fuel source more often, I guess just do more low intensity cardio. But at the end of the day, it's not really going to matter. It's still energy in versus energy out is still going to be the most important factor in how much body fat you gain or lose. There's just no way around that. All right, next question. Does blood donation increase your TDEE, that's total daily energy expenditure, even for just a day, since your body will have to produce more blood cells than usual to compensate the loss? Just a curiosity. All right, as much as I love blood donation, you guys know I donate blood pretty often and have for many, many years. I'm a big advocate of it. In fact, I donated at least 25 times to the MD Anderson Children's Cancer Research Center. I'm a big believer in this. But as a fat loss tool, no, absolutely not. And the reason for it is, yeah, you're going to lose a few hundred calories probably giving a pint of blood, because there's a certain amount of blood sugar in there. There's a certain amount of protein in the red blood cells. However, what you're also doing is you're going to be sluggish and not energetic that day. You're not supposed to exercise on the day that you give blood. You're going to be like 24 hours before you exercise again. If you're smart, if you don't want to risk throwing a blood clot and harming yourself or dying, you're not going to exercise within 24 hours of it. So therefore, the extra energy that you lost through the blood is going to be compensated for by your lack of output around it. So no, it's not going to help you with your net total energy turnover at all. It's going to be possibly even the opposite. It's not going to help you with that. But I still encourage people to donate blood, even if it's not going to help you lose fat or lose weight. All right, next question. Should I aim for neural or muscular failure on both during the same session? All right, 2 points I need to address with this. Number one, I have stated repeatedly in videos in the past, I guess I need to cover this again. You should not be doing mixed training in the same workout sessions. The data on this is pretty clear over the years. Your varying rep ranges do not need to be mixed in the same workouts. You need to separate them in different training sessions, whether you're doing weekly undulating periodization, daily undulating periodization, linear periodization, whatever you're doing, you do not want to mix your rep ranges in the same workout, particularly on the same exercises and body parts. And this is something that I guess I will cover it again in a future video, since maybe you haven't seen it. So that you can throw out the door. Number two, I've also stated in the past that yes, there are, for reaching muscle failure with high reps, through the accumulation of metabolites and the muscle no longer being able to contract, can have benefits for hypertrophy and gaining muscle mass. It's good for your gains. However, neural muscle failure is not a good thing. You do not want to hit failure with heavy reps in training. That's something that you save for a competitive environment, because it will cause peripheral nervous system fatigue. It will reduce your ability to lift heavy loads over the next few days, and it's going to make you weaker. It will negatively affect your training, and it doesn't benefit your training. You don't get stronger by reaching neuromuscular failure with low reps and heavy weight. It doesn't make you stronger to actually fail at a rep. If anything, it can do the opposite if you do it too often. All right, next question. Weight training during sports season. Jason, I've been doing full body strength / power training all summer and into the fall 3 times a week. But as the winter season approaches, I have to spend more time doing sport-specific workouts. I play basketball. How do I start tapering back the strength workouts to get to the point where I can maintain the strength I've built? I will only be able to train 1, maybe 2 times a week. Should I still try and progress using a linear progression? No, brother, you're an in-season athlete now. You use the off-season to gain strength. You do not worry about gaining strength. Do not worry about progression during your in-season. You need to fine-tune your skills for your sport so you can get out there and dominate on the field. So what you need to do, scale your full body workouts back to 2 times a week and keep your work exactly where it was. If you've been doing 3 sets of 5 on the barbell squat with 300 pounds, then stick with 3 sets of 5 on the barbell squat for 300 pounds. And instead of doing it 3 times a week, you're only going to do it twice a week. And if that becomes too taxing with all your other work, then cut the weight back 10, 15 pounds. You might even want to scale the weights back a full 5%. So that would be 15 pounds. You could cut down to like 285 for your 3 sets of 5. And your strength will pretty well maintain doing 2 days a week with weights within 10% of what you've been previously using. It will sustain your strength just fine during your playing season without taxing your recovery, making you sore, and affecting your ability to get good at your sport-specific training, your endurance, or your actual playing ability when you get out on the court to play. So that's really what you need to do there. So you can scale the weights back 5%, but no more than 10%. Don't progress anymore. Cut back to 2 workouts per week, and you'll be just fine, brother. All right, next question. You've said in the past you're not a big fan of daily undulating periodization, and for those reading the question, you are not anti-DEP. You just prefer linear periodization. However, you also acknowledge that higher frequency is more optimal than lower frequency for strength gains. So even though you prefer linear periodization, would you say that training each lift 3 times a week with DEP is better than training each lift once a week with linear periodization? Well, that's a good question. Actually, I'm leaning more in the direction that weekly undulating periodization might really be beneficial. There is emerging data showing that it might have a small advantage over linear periodization. So not daily undulating, but possibly weekly undulating. So in regards to your question, yeah, you will get stronger on a higher frequency unless you're using massive amounts of drugs, in which case the once a week would be just fine with a lot of volume. But if you're not using very large amounts of anabolic drugs, then yeah, you will get stronger faster training the same exercise 3 days a week on daily undulating periodization than you will once a week on linear periodization. Again, barring large amounts of anabolics. If hefty amounts of drugs come into the mix, you may actually get stronger off the once a week with linear periodization in many cases. All right, next question and last question of the week. And I want to point out for you guys, if you don't want to hear something off topic that's not related to fitness in any way, go ahead and stop the video now. So I've warned you so you can't complain that I did this for the last question of the week. Which presidential candidate are you liking at the moment? A lot of you may or may not know my actual real political views. I'm kind of a libertarian conservative. I don't like the religious right. I think the religious right in America has destroyed right-wing politics. I am extremely right-wing on most issues, barring 3 issues. So this is going to help you narrow down which candidate I'm in favor of. The only 3 issues I'm not right-wing are on abortion. I'm pro-abortion. No, I didn't even say pro-choice. I said I'm pro-abortion. I'm pro legalization of marijuana and decriminalization of all drugs across the board. So focusing more on rehabilitation rather than them being criminal offenses. And I am for equal rights for homosexuals. So I don't accept the notions of the religious right. But outside of that, I'm very right-wing. But again, I believe in individual freedoms like that, freedom of choice of the individual. So I'm a little bit more of a libertarian. So my actual candidate of choice right now, I don't really like any of them. I don't think any of them are perfect. My number one current choice is going to be Rand Paul at the moment. Out of all of the candidates from both parties who are up and running, Rand Paul appears to be the one that I like the most. And I would say the one that I like the least is Bernie Sanders, just for those curious. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.